The sky above the palace was gray and cold. Heavy clouds floated over the broken towers of the alien capital. Silence hung over everything, except for the soft sound of wind moving through the empty halls. Once this place was full of laughter, music, and the bright colors of a proud empire. Now, only ruins and memories remained. The alien king sat on his stone throne, still wearing his old royal robe. It was torn at the edges, and the once shining jewels had lost their light. He was old, now his eyes tired, his back heavy with years of war and loss. His name had once been spoken with respect across the galaxy. Even his own people barely looked at him. Servants walked past him quietly, afraid to speak. Soldiers stood at attention with blank faces, not knowing who they served anymore. Outside the palace walls, enemies waited like hungry beasts. They knew the king had no strength left. Empire was dying. But that was not what hurt him most, what broke. The king's heart was the memory of his daughter. She had been the brightest star in his life. A strong warrior, brave and loyal. She had taken her ship and led her people into the Great War, fighting at the front lines. But years had passed. No message, no signal, only silence. Many believed she was dead. He had told them she would return. But now, even he didn't believe his own words. He walked to the tall window beside his throne. The view stretched far miles of broken city, blackened towers, and distant fires. His fingers touched the glass. Once this city had been beautiful. Now it looked like a grave. Behind him, one of his advisors entered slowly. "Your Highness," the advisor said, bowing low. "The outer colonies have stopped sending supplies. The people there have joined the rebels." The king did not turn. "And what of the humans?" The advisor hesitated. They remained silent. "None have been seen. In this sector, the galaxy still treats them as a myth, just strange creatures from a forgotten world." The king gave a tired smile. "They are not a myth. They are real. And one of them saved my daughter once." The advisor looked confused. "Your daughter?" But the king did not explain. It was a memory he held close. A small moment when he had read a report his daughter had written it. She had been saved by a human pilot in a fierce battle. The report was brief. The human had vanished after that. She had gone back to war. That was the last time he had heard from her. As night fell, the king returned to his private chamber. He lit a small flame in the center of the room, a ritual from the old times. He whispered her name and closed his eyes. "Where are you, my child?" he asked the shadows. Then, without warning, alarms rang across the palace. Guards rushed through the halls. Bright red lights flashed. The king stood quickly. "What is happening?" A soldier burst into the chamber, breathing hard. "A ship has broken through the palace sky zone, Your Highness. It's not one of ours. Should we destroy it?" The king's heart jumped. "Wait," he said. "Does it carry any flags?" "None. But it's crashing near the temple garden." "Don't shoot," the king ordered. "Take me there." The soldier looked shocked, but obeyed. Minutes later, the king stood in the cold night, staring at a small ship that had crashed into the grass and broken trees of the old garden.
Ow.
Smoke rose from its sides. The back hatch opened with a loud hiss. Figure stepped out, limping, her armor cracked, her face covered in dirt and blood. The king gasped. It was her, his daughter. She had returned, and behind her was a human. Tall, strong, and silent. He stepped forward with one arm supporting her. His eyes met the king's, calm but firm. No fear, no pride. Just quiet strength. The palace guards raised their weapons. "Lower them," the king shouted. The guards obeyed, confused. The princess dropped to her knees, too weak to stand. The human held her carefully. "Father," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I'm home." The king ran forward and knelt beside her. His hands touched her face, his heart pounding. Tears filled his old eyes. "You're alive," he said. "You're really alive." She nodded slowly, and then pointed to the human. "He saved me." The human said nothing. He simply helped her stand. The king looked at him, unsure what to say. "Who are you?" he finally asked. The human gave a small bow. Ethan, just a pilot. The king studied him. A simple name, a calm voice, and a presence that didn't match. His kind's weak reputation, his human was different. And yet the king saw something else in his daughter's eyes. Something he hadn't seen before, hope. For the first time in years, the cold around his heart began to melt. The palace guards followed close behind as the king helped his daughter through the stone halls. The human walked beside them, quiet and alert, his eyes scanning every shadow. Old banners hung torn from the ceiling, and the once shining floors were now dull with dust. The palace, like the kingdom, was tired. The princess could barely walk. Her legs shook, and her breath came in short gasps. Still, she held her head high, refusing help beyond what the human gave her. Her father led them to the royal healing chamber. Glowing lights flickered on as they entered. Alien healers moved quickly, placing her on a bed and examining her wounds. The king stood close, refusing to leave her side. The human stepped back, giving them space. A healer turned to the king. She has broken ribs, deep burns, and signs of infection, but she will live. The king let out a slow breath. Felt like the weight of a planet had lifted from his chest. But then his eyes turned to the human. "You," he said calmly, "tell me what happened." Ethan nodded. Was leading a group near the Dark Moon line, ambushed. Most of her team was wiped out. She sent out a signal and I picked it up. "Why were you there?" King asked. "I wasn't supposed to be," Ethan said. "My ship had engine failure. Was hiding in the shadow field, trying not to be noticed. When I got her signal, I knew I had to go." "You saved her," the king said slowly. "She saved me too," Ethan replied. "I just returned the favor." The king studied him. Human's voice was calm, without pride or fear. It was rare to see that, even in his own soldiers. Before the king could speak again, one of the royal guards entered. "Your Highness, the council requests a meeting. They want to speak about the human," the king nodded. "Let them wait. I will come soon." After the guard left, the king walked closer to Ethan. "You're not like the stories," the king said. "We were told humans are weak, untrustworthy, full of emotion and chaos." "Most of that is true," Ethan said with a small smile. "But not all of us are the same." The king didn't smile back. He turned to look at his daughter. She was resting now, her eyes closed, her chest rising slowly. His heart ached. He had almost lost her. "If this human had not come, you will stay in the palace," the king said, under guard, but not as a prisoner. Ethan nodded. "I understand." Later that day, the royal council gathered in the chamber of judgment. 12 highborn leaders stood around a glowing table. Their faces were sharp, their robes stiff and clean. They looked nothing like the people outside the walls, hungry and afraid. The king entered with slow, steady steps. One council member, a tall male with silver skin, stepped forward. "Your Highness, we must speak plainly. Your daughter has returned." "With a human? This is dangerous." "Dangerous?" the king asked. "They saved her life." "That may be true," the counselor said. "But humans are unpredictable. If word spreads that a human is here, it could cause unrest. The people might panic. Or worse, hope." Another counselor added, "Hope is dangerous when our enemies are watching." The king's voice turned cold. "You fear hope?" "We fear what comes with it," the counselor said. "Change, questions, chaos." The king leaned forward. "We live in chaos now. Our cities burn. Our people hide. And the only one who brought anything back to us is my daughter and a human." The room fell silent. The council could not argue with that. Still, they did not approve. "Let him stay a day," the council leader said. "Then he must leave. This is not his world." The king gave a short nod. "I will consider your advice." When the meeting ended, the king returned to the healing chamber. His daughter was awake. She looked at him, her eyes tired but sharp. "You met with them," she said. "Yes," he replied. "They don't want the human here." "Of course will." "Not," she said. "They fear him, because they know he's different." "What did he do?" the king asked softly. The princess smiled faintly. "He stood by me when no one else did. He fought with no armor, no backup, no reason, except that it was the right thing to do. And when I told him to run, he said no. He carried me through fire. The king sat beside her bed. Do you trust him? With my life, she said. The king nodded. His mind was full of doubts, but his heart whispered something else. That night, Ethan stood alone in the high tower. He looked at the stars. Far away, his home planet spun in silence. He had never meant to be here, never dreamed of meeting royalty or changing anything. He had just answered a call behind him. The king entered. You should rest, the king said. Can't sleep, Ethan said. Too quiet. The king stood beside him. You saved my daughter, he said. For that I owe you more than thanks. You don't owe me anything, Ethan replied. I just did what anyone should do. The king gave a long sigh. Not many would. They stood in silence for a moment, both staring at the stars. They say your kind is small and weak, the king said. Maybe we are, Ethan said. But we don't quit. The king turned to him. Stay, he said. I want to understand what kind of man you really are. Ethan nodded. I'll stay. The sun rose slowly over the capital, casting a soft golden light over the ruined towers and broken streets. The once-proud city now looked like a wounded giant trying to breathe. Inside the palace, life stirred again. Whispers spread that the king's daughter had returned, and with her, a human. Some were curious, some were afraid. Most did not believe it. Inside the healing chamber, the princess sat up in bed, her injuries wrapped in soft white cloth. Her face was pale, but steady. The human sat nearby in silence. He didn't speak unless spoken to. He watched over her like a silent guard. The king entered with his royal robe, simple but clean. His face showed lines of worry, but also hope. You're stronger today, he said. His daughter nodded, because I'm home. The king sat beside her bed. Tell me everything. So she did. She spoke in a quiet voice, Ethan listening beside her. It was during the raid on Sector 8, she said. We were outnumbered. We tried to retreat, but the skies were full of enemy ships. Well, they had new weapons ones. Didn't understand. Half my team was gone in minutes. The rest were scattered. She paused, her hands gripping the blanket. I was shot down. My ship crashed on a barren moon. No water, no shelter, no way to send a signal. I thought I would die there. Ethan looked down. He remembered that moon well. Then she continued. I saw a shadow above me. Another crash. Thought it was the enemy, coming to finish the job. But it was him. She pointed to Ethan. His ship had failed. Random chance, maybe. Or fate. He landed just a few miles from me. The king leaned forward, listening closely. I crawled toward him, bleeding. He came out of his broken ship, limping, one hand burned. He saw me, and instead of hiding, he picked me up. She looked at Ethan. He didn't even ask who I was, just carried me to safety. Ethan shrugged. You were in bad shape. He found a cave, the princess went on. We hid there. He kept me alive. Gave me food from his emergency pack. Fixed my wounds with pieces of his own clothes. The king said nothing. His eyes were full. He fought off wild creatures, she said. When the weather turned bad, he built fire from nothing. He made jokes when I cried. He made me believe we'd get out. The king looked at Ethan. Why? Ethan replied simply, because no one should die alone. Silence filled the chamber. Even the guards at the door looked away after a moment. The king stood. This story must be heard, he said. The people have forgotten what bravery is. Maybe you can remind them. But outside the chamber, trouble was growing. In the council hall, the elders whispered behind closed doors. They watched the people below, talking about the human and the returning princess. They will rally behind her, one counselor said. And the human, said another. They love stories. They'll turn him into a hero. We can't allow that, the eldest said. Humans bring change. Change brings weakness. Then what do we do? The eldest narrowed his eyes. We remove the human. Quietly. No questions. No mess. Meanwhile, back in the garden, the princess walked slowly with Ethan beside her. She leaned on him, her strength not fully back. The garden had once been a place of music and celebration. Now, weeds grew between the stones. Broken statues lay forgotten. "I used to play here," she said. "When I was little, I'd pretend to be a queen. Looks like you might get." "Your wish," Ethan said. She laughed. "What if the council has anything to say about it?" "You stop near the broken fountain. They won't accept me," she said. "Not after what I've done. Not with you beside me." Ethan looked at her. "Then we leave." "No," she said. "This is my home. I fought for it. I nearly died for it." She looked into his eyes. "But I won't let them hurt you." That night, while the palace slept, a shadow moved through the halls. 2 guards, dressed in royal armor, moved toward the guest chamber where the humans slept. Their orders were simple: quiet, no noise, no trace. But the room was empty. Ethan wasn't there. He had already guessed something was wrong earlier. He had found strange footsteps near the healing chamber. He had seen how the guards looked at him. He had seen this kind of thing before, on Earth, in wars no one talked about. He waited near the roof of the palace, in the old watchtower. He wasn't alone. The princess stood beside him. "They tried to kill you," she said, her voice low. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "They're not very good at it. We have to go," she said. "Where?" he asked. "There's a way out through the ancient tunnels," she said. "Psh, my father told me about them. They lead to the lower city. From there, we can disappear." "And then what?" She looked at him. Her face was hard now. A warrior's face. "Then we fight." Ethan smiled for the first time that day. "I was hoping you'd say that." Together, they slipped into the night, leaving behind the burning candles of the palace and stepping into the unknown. But they were not running. They were preparing. The underground tunnels were dark, damp, and full of dust. Broken lamps hung from the stone walls, long forgotten by the people above. Only the sound of footsteps echoed in the deep. The princess and Ethan moved carefully, using a small torch, made from old wiring and glowing crystal. "Are you sure this path is safe?" Ethan asked, glancing behind. The princess nodded. "It's the one secret the council never bothered to explore. It was built during the First War, to help the royal family escape." Ethan looked around at the narrow space. "Seems like the right time to use it." The two kept walking, following the twisting path that led away from the palace. Above them, chaos was beginning. The king stood in his throne room, surrounded by guards loyal to him. He had heard of the attack attempt. He knew the council had crossed the line. He looked at one of his oldest guards. "They tried to kill a guest in my home, and they called themselves protectors of this kingdom." The guard bowed his head. "We are ready to follow your command, my king. But the council holds most of the army." The king nodded. "Then we hold something stronger, truth." He turned and walked toward the high chamber, where the royal signal tower stood. From there, messages could be sent to all corners of the empire. He had stayed silent for too long. It was time to speak. At the same time, in the council's hidden chamber, 12 leaders stood in a tight circle. Their faces were serious. Their eyes were cold. "The human has escaped," said one. "With the princess," said another. "They're going to rally the people." The eldest counselor raised his hand. "Then we move faster. We remove the king." Gasps filled the room. "He is weak," the eldest said. "He's led us to ruin. And now he allows humans inside our palace? No. We must protect what is left of our power." "What about the people?" the younger counselor asked. "They don't matter," the eldest snapped. "They'll believe what we tell them. We still control the news, the guards, and the food routes. If the king speaks against us, we call it treason." The others slowly nodded. Meanwhile, in the lower city, the princess and Ethan stepped out. Of the tunnel entrance, hidden behind a broken wall, the city was quiet, but not asleep. People whispered in alleyways, shared food in broken homes, and stared at the stars, as if waiting for something. A small group of rebels, wearing mixed armor and rags, watched them from a distance. One of them, A tall female with green markings walked over. Princess, she said carefully. We heard a rumor, and now we see it's true. The princess gave a tired nod. I need help. The rebels didn't question her. They had followed her once in war. They would follow her again. And this is the human? The tall rebel asked. Ethan gave a small wave. Hi! The rebel raised a brow. He doesn't look dangerous. Looks can lie, the princess said. He saved my life. Going to help us save this kingdom. The king reached the signal tower. The old machine sparked to life with a hum. He placed his hand on the control panel. His voice, though old, still carried strength. To the people of this empire, he said, this is your king. Screens across the kingdom lit up. In homes and streets and dark corners, people stopped and listened. There has been betrayal, the king continued. Your leaders, the council, tried to murder a guest of peace. They tried to kill the human who saved my daughter's life. He paused. They fear him not because he is dangerous, but because he gives us hope. People gasped. Some wept. Others clenched their fists. They want to remove me. They fear change. But I will not step down. I will not run. I will stand. And I ask you, my people, to stand with me. Across the empire, screens went dark. The signal was cut, but the message had been heard. In the city below, more rebels joined the princess and Ethan. They brought weapons, small ships, and old data systems. They had no leader until now. Ethan stood in front of a map laid out on a dusty table. They'll expect us to run, he said. But we won't. The rebels leaned closer, listening. We strike at the council's control points, food supply stations, signal hubs, and guard towers. We don't attack the people. We give them a reason to believe. And what about you? One asked. You're not from here? Ethan looked around. That doesn't matter. What matters is right and wrong, and what they're doing is wrong. The princess smiled. This is why I trust him, soon small. Victories followed. Rebel groups struck fast and disappeared. Messages spread in secret. Food was shared. People cheered when they heard the human's name. He became a symbol, but the council struck back. Harder than before, they sent warships to crush the rebellion. They ordered arrests across the capital, and finally, they moved toward the palace. The king stood at the gates unafraid. He wore no armor. Only his old robe council guards lined up in front of him. Step aside, old one, said a captain. You are no king. The king looked at him calmly. I am still the voice of the people, and they are watching. Far above, drones streamed. The scene live. The council had tried to block the signal, but they had failed. The truth was out, and from the skies above. A rebel ship roared down and landed near the palace gates. The door opened. Ethan stepped out first, behind him. The princess soldiers on both sides froze. The king smiled. My daughter has returned. Guards slowly lowered their weapons. The people had chosen, and the council's rebellion had just begun to fall. The palace gates stood open now. Once closed and guarded by fear, they were open to hope. The people gathered outside, whispered and stared. Some cheered quietly. Others still feared what change might bring. But one thing was clear. This was no longer the old kingdom. Ethan walked through the crowds, his steps steady, his eyes calm. Beside him, the princess walked tall, her strength returning. The king followed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Inside the throne room, the council sat uneasy. Their power was slipping like sand through fingers. They had underestimated the bond between the princess and the human. And now, the people were choosing a new path. What do we do? One counselor asked, voice shaking. The eldest counselor slammed his fist on the table. We fight, he said. We use every ship, every soldier. We crush this rebellion. But the king raised his hand. There will be no more fighting within these walls, he said. Not if we want to save this empire. The counselors looked shocked. You let a human walk free in your palace? Another said. Because he is more than a human, the king replied. He is a leader. Outside, Ethan stood before the growing rebel forces. They were a mix of tired soldiers, former prisoners, and citizens ready to protect their home. They looked to him with hope and doubt. I know I'm not from here, Ethan said. I'm just a pilot from a small planet. I've seen what happens when people give up, when fear controls them. I don't want that for you, he pointed. To the sky, our enemy believes we are weak, divided, afraid, but we are not. We fight not because we want war, but because we want peace. A cheer rose from the crowd. Our first move is simple, Ethan said. We take control of the food supply. Without food, the council cannot hold power. Then, we take back the signal towers, give the people their voice. He turned to the princess. Your father has begun the call for peace, he said. We need to keep it alive, she smiled. Then we begin. Battles came quickly. Small groups moved like shadows through cities, taking control without unnecessary bloodshed. They freed prisoners, shared supplies, and helped citizens. People joined their ranks every day. The council fought back with warships. And soldiers, their attacks were brutal but slow. The rebels used new tactics, surprise, speed, and unity. Ethan led many missions personally. He flew through enemy lines, landing where least expected. He trained soldiers in strange Earth, methods using smaller, faster ships, and coordinated attacks. Slowly, the tide turned. Inside the palace, the king watched news reports from across the empire. He saw his daughter leading rallies, speaking to crowds, and standing firm beside the human general. He felt pride, but also worry. Will this peace last? He asked his closest advisor. If the people believe in it, the advisor replied, then yes. One night, the princess and Ethan met in the old garden. The moon shone bright, casting silver light on broken stone. You've changed everything, she said softly. We've changed everything, Ethan corrected. She looked at him. Do you think the council will give up? Not easily, he said, but they will lose. Because the people want something new, something better. She reached out and took his hand. Thank you, she whispered. No, he said. Thank you for trusting me. As weeks passed, more planets declared support for the princess and Ethan. The council's grip weakened. Their leaders were arrested or fled. Soldiers switched sides. The empire began to heal, and in the heart of the kingdom, the king sat on his throne. He's no longer alone. The human who had once been a stranger was now his trusted ally. The princess ruled not just by blood, but by courage, and the story of survival and hope spread far beyond the stars. The war was over. The stars shone brightly over the capital city. Lights filled the streets, once empty and dark. People smiled, laughed, and hugged. Children played in the squares. The empire had begun to heal. Inside the palace, the king sat quietly. On his throne. The weight of years still rested on him, but his eyes were softer now. He looked at his daughter standing beside him. Her armor was clean, her face strong and proud, and next to her stood Ethan, the human who had changed everything. The king raised his hand. Today we start a new chapter, he said. Not just for this kingdom, but for all who live in it. He turned to Ethan. You have proven yourself not only a warrior but a protector. Will you accept the title of guardian of the realm? Ethan looked surprised. I am honored, he said, but I do not seek power. Power is not what you seek, the king said. It is responsibility. I see you carry it well. The crowd in the great hall cheered. The princess stepped forward. My father has given me the throne. She said, but I do not rule alone. Together, we will build a kingdom of peace and strength, one that welcomes all who seek justice. She looked at Ethan. This human saved my life. He saved our hope. And now he stands with us as a symbol of unity. Ethan smiled, but his eyes were serious. This victory is not just ours, he said. It belongs to everyone who believed in something better, who refused to give up. Outside, celebrations filled the streets. Music played, and lanterns floated. Into the sky, people sang songs of freedom and courage. The princess walked among them, greeting her people. Ethan stayed close, watching and learning. He had never imagined this life when he first answered the call for help, but now he was home, in the days that followed. The council was disbanded. Its members faced justice for their crimes. New leaders were chosen by the people. Peace talks began with former enemies. The empire's future looked bright. The king retired from the throne but remained an advisor. His daughter ruled with wisdom and kindness. Ethan worked to build stronger ties between humans and aliens, teaching trust where there had been fear. One evening, the princess and Ethan stood on a balcony, watching the sunset. "Do you ever miss your home?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said, "but I have found a new one here, with you." She smiled. "We're stronger together," he nodded. "And we will protect this kingdom, no matter what comes next." The legend of the alien king who had lost hope but found it again when his daughter returned with a human spread across the stars became a story told to children, a tale of courage, friendship, change. The empire was no longer the same. It was better because hope had returned.